Hey, this is Jim at Broadfield. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Broadfield Live. Super excited to introduce to you this week Sony wireless microphones. Broadfield is your source for Sony wireless mics, pro audio, lots of products from the Sony audio division, the Sony audio product line, all available here at Broadfield. To find out more information about all the Sony products available here, contact your Broadfield sales rep. We can help you build your next project, end quotes. Sony PTZ cameras, cinema cameras, audio, microphones, you name it. Broadfield is your source. Let's work together and make sure we get these quoted out to all of your customers. We invited Andy from Sony to join us on today's show to introduce the wireless microphones and all of the great advantages across that Sony product line. So without further ado, let's bring Andy onto the show. Hey, Andy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. Jim said, my name is Andy Munitz. I'm Senior Pro Audio Product Manager for Sony, and I'm kind of out of the broadcast division. And what we're going to talk about today is our wireless microphones in the UWP-D family that get used in a lot of broadcast applications, a lot of corporate applications, a lot of vlogging applications, in traditional kind of EFP type stuff. And so without further ado, let's kind of jump into this training. This is called UWP-D wireless microphones. What many people might not know is that we at Sony have been in the wireless microphone business for many, many years. Actually, our very first wireless mic was back in 1962. And for those also that may not know, the name Sony is derived from the Latin word sonus for sound. So sound goes as deep into Sony's history as possible. But we came out with our very first wireless microphone again back in 1962. This was, tube electronics and a portable, kind of micro, whatever. I mean, it was a chip-based kind of transmitter. But we came out with this wireless system way back when. We continued in this area of wireless microphones and catered a lot to the broadcast industry. And if you're aware of anything in broadcast, that gear gets chewed up, tossed around, in and out of trucks, gets just totally beat up. So what we gained a reputation for early on was making, very, very well-built and strong wireless equipment that could be used in driving race cars around tracks and giant golf outings. This was high-end broadcast equipment. So the UWP-D series specifically is our UHF wireless kind of package. As a matter of fact, UWP-D stands for UHF wireless package, and the D stands for digital signal processing. We'll go a little bit more into that in a minute. But some of the major features that you should be aware of, it uses digital audio processing for sound quality and a direct digital camera to many of Sony's cameras. It has what's called true double tuner diversity. We'll just, discuss that and make sure you understand why that is so very critical. It's great, really well built, great rugged construction. It has a great fit and finish. This is something that I have come to really appreciate in all my years at Sony. When you pick up a Sony product, you get a sense of ownership and pride because it feels really good in your hand. Simple as that. It doesn't feel really plasticky. And that is a good thing. So that's a part of the Sony design philosophy. We have something called NFC channel setting mode. No menu required to scan for open frequencies. It's got USB powering, a battery timer, and a 3-segment display. Headphone output on the receivers with something called monitoring mode that you'll learn about. We have access up to an incredibly large number of wireless frequencies out there because we live in spectrum challenged times. And we want you to understand why this is a great solution to giving you the best chance of finding great frequencies. We have microline inputs on both the body pack and the plug-on transmitter. And the plug-on transmitter even has phantom power, 48 volt as it's referred to. We have backwards compatibility with our earlier wireless microphones in kind of this family and previous family. And these UWP-D products are available in packages or as individual components, and we'll go into that. So specific to the UWP-D family, as I briefly mentioned, UWP-D stands for UHF Wireless Package with DSP. That's the family name. In the wireless UWP-D family, of course, we have transmitters and we have receivers. The transmitter models all start with three letters UTX, T for transmitter. The receiver models all start with URX, R obviously for receiver models. So, for example, a UTX B40 is a transmitter because it's a T. A B stands for body pack, and 40 stands for fourth generation. A UTX P40 is the plug-on transmitter, if you look to the pictures on the right. And a UTX M40 is a handheld microphone with the electronics and the transmission built into the handle of the microphone. In the receiver side, we have the URX P40. In this case, it's a receiver, obviously, because of the R, but P doesn't stand for plug-on. It stands for it's being portable. It can run on batteries. The URX P41D is a dual-channel portable receiver. And on the bottom right picture is a URX S03D. The S stands for slot because it slots into the back of our shoulder cams, our big broadcast shoulder cams. And the D again, stands for dual channel. And in this case, the 03 is because it was from our third generation. So this is, particularly techy, but it goes to what we think of as one of the very important things of the UWP-D family, which is sound quality. In the top blue section here, this is the way wireless microphones in this family have traditionally worked. You take in your precious microphone signal, and then with a circuit design inside of the transmitter, you then compress the signal. You make it small. Then you turn it into a baby radio station through the RF modulation stage. You send it as a radio station, FM radio signal through the air. The receiver tunes it in, demodulates it, and then runs it back through an expander circuit. So you got compression at the beginning and expansion at the end. And if you, by the way, combine compression and expansion, you get the word compansion or companding scheme. And that's where that word comes from. It means how did you compress at the beginning and how did you re-expand it? But the goal of the expander is to re-expand that compressed signal and get back what you originally had. It's like frozen orange juice. You add back in the water. The challenge is that these compressor and expander circuits were built up out of tiny little electronic components. And as you're well aware, components all have various tolerances. They're never perfectly identical. And so you never get that perfect mirror image out of how you compressed it to how you expanded. And generally speaking, the reason it is compressed before you make the baby radio station is to use the available spectrum efficiently, in a sense. That's one reason. Now, in the UWP-D family, as I said earlier, the D stands for DSP, or digital signal processing. And that's what happens down in this bottom. And it's particularly, maybe a little bit weird to follow through, but try if you can. You have that again, that microphone input, your precious signal. And then it goes through a microphone preamp, to match the signal to the internal workings of the transmitter. But, and that's a 24-bit 96K A to D converter. So we can take that signal and get it right into the digital domain. Now we're in bitland, and we apply a mathematical algorithm to do the compression. We're not doing it with a circuit design. We're doing it with math. And now the compression is done mathematically. We then go back through a D to A circuit and turn it back into an analog signal, where we then put it through that same modulation, that RF modulation, to make an FM radio signal. We then take that signal, send it through the air, the receiver tunes it in, demodulates it, and then we have to bring it back into the digital domain. So we go through another A to D converter. And then we are now back in bitland. And then we can apply the perfect mathematical algorithm to re-expand what we had previously compressed at the transmitter. And we do a perfect mirror image. Now, the interesting thing here, and hope we'll be out of this, this very technical section in a second, is you can do two things with your signal at this point. You can take it and turn it back through another D to A and send it out into the camera where it goes, signal goes back to another A to D and then becomes part of the video file. But in our latest generation, our latest cameras, and in this fourth generation of UWP-D, you can pick the signal off while it's in the digital domain inside the receiver and send that digital signal directly into the video file of the camera for an exceptionally clean signal, bypassing that additional D to A and A to D. Okay, if you followed along with that, it's great. If you didn't and you have an opportunity to watch it back again, it's kind of important, but that's what it is. Now, sonically, what's the difference? So here is a waveform of a sound with a very sharp transient. Think of jingling keys or hitting a ball with a bat or the letter T or the letter K. That waveform has a very sharp transient onset of the sound. And this is what it looks like, and it trails off. With that circuit design, the old system, that sharp transient would kind of get mushed out and doesn't hold on to that definition that we hear in nature, that we associate with a very present clean signal. But this is what we can do with our DSP-based companding system. We hold on to that very sharp transient waveform. Okay, moving on. This slide, if you're not already aware of what diversity reception is, it is perhaps the most important thing when it comes to wireless microphones. And if you can follow along with this, if you don't already know, you may have already heard of the word diversity, but may not know what it means. This is the situation. Let's pretend that you and I are each in the same room. You are behind the camera, and you're going to take the place of the role of the wireless receiver. And you've got one tuning circuit and one antenna. And I am the talent, 6-8 feet in front of the camera, and I am a baby radio station. I'm this microphone here sending waves out. Now, the picture on the far right is a giant, radio tower on the top of a mountain. It is obviously sending signals out in all 360 degrees. And that's the important part. So am I as the little wireless microphone transmitter. My waves fly off of my antenna in all 360 degrees. Now, one of those waves will leave me and make its way directly to your single antenna. And you go, I'm tuned into you and I hear you perfectly. What could possibly go wrong? Well, what can go wrong is that one of my other waves flying off of me from a different direction might bounce off of a hard surface, a metal girder in a ceiling, a hard wall. Much like light bounces off of a mirror, these waves bounce off of hard surfaces. And if a reflection of that wave off of that hard surface happens to reach your single antenna, but because of the extra distance it had to travel, if its peak lines up perfectly with the trough of the wave I am sending directly, if you remember back to high school physics, they told us in wave theory, two opposite but identical waves, 180 degrees out of phase, will cancel each other's energy out. And that's what causes a wireless dropout. It's called multi-path interference. One path is directly from here, directly to you. The other path is a reflected wave, and it gets there at the same time. And you get a dropout. And it can happen when I am literally 8 feet in front of the camera. Now, if I go 300, 400, 500, 600 feet away from you as the receiver, you can also get a dropout, but that is a different kind of dropout. That just means that my little radio station is perhaps not powerful enough to reach you, and that's a different kind of dropout. So the big question is, you've got a dropout, and it can happen at the worst time, absolutely in the middle of wedding vows. Do you take to be your wedded? How are you going to ever expect that couple to watch back their wedding video and be happy about it? So how do you protect against it? That's where the concept of diversity reception comes in. We at Sony prefer to do it as what's called true double tuner antenna diversity reception system. What it means is now you playing the role of the receiver, instead of only having a single antenna and a single tuning circuit, I'm going to give you a whole second tuning circuit and a second antenna. And both of your tuning circuits are tuned to listen to me. And they're both doing their best to tune in to me. But between your two tuning circuits, there is what's called a comparator circuit, whose job it is to compare which one of you two has the stronger signal. If you look here where this arrow is, there's a vertical bar for the A tuner, reception bar, and the B tuner is lower. So it flickers A here, and it will listen to the A tuner. And even if a dropout condition potentially could happen, the system will have seen that coming and automatically hopped over to the stronger signal to prevent any dropout. And it can actually do a crossfade at that point. So that is what's called true double tuner diversity. The challenge with it is, how do you build all that extra circuitry into a tiny receiver package that is meant to fit on top of a video camera? Well, at Sony, this is what we do. We know how to build really small electronics and give it great battery life. And this is something we've been doing for tens and 30, 40, 50 years, actually. But the competition, some of the competition, they don't have our chops. So what they do is they do something called adaptive diversity, which means that inside of their receivers, they have a single tuning circuit with a single antenna, and the audio cable that it has feeding out into the camera perhaps is really an audio cable, but it's asked to act like a second antenna. But it's not really an antenna to begin with, and it's certainly not the same as the first real antenna. And the system will do what's called an antenna switch. It doesn't happen at the tuner level. I'll leave it there, except to say that we think that preventing dropouts is the most important thing you can possibly have. Now, earlier I talked about having a transmission go long enough, and I had for years always told people, they'd say, well, how far can you go with this? I'd say, 300 feet, but I had never tested it. So I took a transmitter and my cell phone playing music, and I went down to my road. I live, about 30 miles north of New York City on a country road, and I put the transmitter and the microphone and my cell phone playing music, and I took the portable receiver that's got a headphone jack, and I walked up the road, and I listened for when I got my first dropout. And when I got my first dropout, I was actually right in front of the first house on the road. I went to Google Earth, which I found out has a ruler tool, and you can put point A and point B, and it was over 1,200 feet. And that, to me, is a lot better than 300 feet. So, conditions vary. This was a big curved road. It was a sunny day, but there were hundreds of trees between us. I couldn't see my driver. So anyway, just so you know that. So moving on, this is the important stuff. What are the products? So we said earlier that the UWP-D family is available in packages. This is called the UWP-D 21 package. It is perhaps the most popular package. In that package, you get a portable transmitter with an included lavalier microphone and belt clips and a single channel portable receiver with that dual antenna receiver diversity, true double tuner diversity. All of these things and all the cables and everything are included in one package. And, some of the nice things is that the transmitter is microline selectable, and the lob is a very nice little lob. You can update it to this lob in the top, which is called an ECM 77 BMP, and that is our traditional broadcast lavalier, a little bit smaller, a little bit sweeter sound, but not a crazy thing. So tons of people use the existing lavalier that comes with this system. And these units have OLED screens and exceptionally wide operating bandwidth of what's called 72 megahertz. We'll get into that on the next slide. This is also available, by the way, in something called the 941 to 960, the 90 block, which is a whole other topic we'll talk about in a minute. We have the UWP-D 22 package, same single channel receiver, but a handheld microphone with an interchangeable capsule. It's a very nice capsule, but if you want to put somebody else's capsule on. This one screws off, and you put the industry standard thread capsule on that from somewhere else. Same receiver, same transmitters, accessories are included, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is another very popular package, perhaps the second most popular, called the UWP-D 26. It is very similar to the 21 package that had a body pack and a single channel receiver, but at a minor additional cost, you get included the plug-on transmitter. And that plug-on transmitter can get used for boom pole work or stand-up news and all that kind of stuff. And it comes again with all the cables and the clips and all that kind of stuff. Moving on to what I think is a really great package, especially for somebody that wants to make an investment in their wireless and be able to handle just about any kind of job that gets thrown their way. This is called the UWP-D 27 package. This has two body packs both with lavs, but it has a 2-channel receiver, that URX-P41D, the dual channel receiver. All the cables, all the clips, everything like that, available in all the same frequencies. Now, here's the spectrum business. Don't let your eyes gloss over, but several years ago, some of you may have been aware that there was something called an FCC spectrum auction. We have only billions of cell phones in the world, and they all need spectrum as well. So the FCC said, well, we're going to take away some of the spectrum that TV stations use to send their signals over the air, because so many people are watching TV over cable these days. And now certainly even over the web, they watch TVs. So let's take some of that TV spectrum and sell it off to the cell phone companies. And that's what they did. For wireless mics back, early, kind of starting in 2010, the change of DTV, digital television, we had gone up even higher. But in about 2015, we had UHF 14 up through UHF TV channel 51. It was all available as well for wireless microphones, as well as for TV channels. In this particular graphic, the blue lines showed, occupation by TV station, and the white spaces were open spaces, we call white spaces. But after the spectrum auction, this portion under the big red X got sold off to the highest bidders and to the cell phone companies and so on and so forth. So the area that is currently allowed for using these UHF wireless microphones is this area right here, TV channel 14, which starts at 470 approximately megahertz and goes up to about 608. Now we take this section and kind of split it in two with a little bit of overlap right around here on TV channel 25. So we have a package, all of our packages in the UWP-D family. For example, the UWP-D 26/14 package is a version that goes from coverage UHF 14 up through UHF 25. That's 12 UHF TV channels. For those of you that maybe know, an over-the-air TV channel is 6 megahertz wide to carry an entire TV channel, color TV channel, and so on. But 6 megahertz times 12 UHF, 6 times 12 is 72. We have another version of the same mic, same menus, called a /25 kit. That goes from 25 up through 36. And so we cover that entire range, 72 megahertz. You can dial in 2,772 unique wireless microphone channels in each one of these ranges. Way off to the right here is what's called our 90 block, the 941 to 960. Just so you understand what that's about, it is supposed to be a licensed band, and a lot of TV stations sometimes like to operate up there because it's an area of spectrum that is used primarily called STL, studio to transmitter link, where you have a downtown TV station, but you've got a transmission tower up on some mountain range outside of the TV area, the city area. How do you get the signal from downtown up to that transmitter on the mountaintop? They use frequencies, and that's up in the 941 to 960, but they're not always all used. So you can get our units that operate up there, and that's another option. So to focus in on the UWP-D 41, I really like this package because it adds a bunch of new enhancements in this 4th generation. It, as I said, has that direct digital audio output, as all of both receivers do, to get right into our Sony cameras through what's called an MI shoe. We'll talk about that in a couple. But these all have also what's called NFC sync. Part of the challenge with wireless microphones, especially for videographers and photogs who are far more adept at the visual side of things than the audio side, they can easily get very nervous about wireless microphones. And oh, I got to change my frequency. Oh my gosh, if I go into a menu, I'm going to screw something up and then I'm going to have a lot of trouble on this job. So let's just turn it on and hope that these frequencies are working. That's kind of a dangerous thing to do because it's a different day. It could be a different city. It could be a different part of town. And so you generally want to tell the receiver, go ahead and perform a scan function to scan the available spectrum and pick out for me quiet channels that I can now use, that I'm not going to get yelled at by my editor because he hears a bunch of interference. But if you have to dive into menus in order to tell the receiver to scan, that's where photogs get very nervous. So what we've done is we've taken that requirement out of the equation. There is a top panel button right here on the receiver called NFC sync. You literally hold that down for 3 seconds and the unit will start taking off and scanning. And once it's scanned, and it takes about 10 seconds, it will give you the 2 quietest frequencies it found because this is a 2-channel receiver and I turned on both channels. So it says I need 2. Once it's found them and you say, yeah, I like those frequencies, you hit the set button right here. It assigns those frequencies then to channel 1 and channel 2. And then you've got to tell the transmitter, go on to that frequency that the receiver just found. How does it do it? There are a little logo right on both of these units called an NFC logo, near field communication. Sometimes you'll see it on the back of your cell phone when you want to talk to Bluetooth speakers and things like that. And all we do is we tell these two things to talk to each other over that NFC pairing. I'm going to go ahead and do that for you right now. I'm going to hold down the NFC sync button for about 3 seconds. The unit is taking off. You probably can't see it from there, but it's taking off. And when it finds the 2 quietest frequencies, it's going to say, boom, here they are. I found them. And I'm going to say, do you like them? I'm going to go, yes. And please set them to the receiver. The OLED display will flash black, white, and then all you do is you take the transmitter and you touch them together. Hopefully you can hear that vibration. And the vibration is simply because these two are talking, facing each other. You can't see the display, so you didn't know. And it finished doing channel 1 and said, okay, give me your second transmitter. So I pretended this was also my second transmitter, and I held it up, and you're good to get to work. So that's a very easy way to do this. You can do this even while this is mounted on top of the camera. You just take the unit and hold it up on top. So that's that. These have OLED displays. They're easy to read outside, even when it's very sunny. I mentioned great fit and finish. Here is the scanning, the pairing that I just talked about, and that's a very important thing. These are the NFC logos that all of these units have. And the situation that we're showing about here is maybe when you're doing a multi-camera setup and you want all the cameras to hear the same thing out of a transmitter. Now, this could be one transmitter that's currently on your most important talent, the reporter here, or it can be kind of a film set where you've got an audio bag and many talent feeding there. You can take the output of the audio bag and send it on a transmitter. And say you've got multiple cameras or multiple people that want to listen on the receiver. Well, in this last slide, I scanned on the receiver and I instructed the transmitter to go to that frequency. We can go the opposite way as well. We'll tell the receiver, get your frequency information from the transmitter. So you tell the receiver, say you got a pile of these things, and they all have to listen to this one transmitter, pick up one receiver, vibrates, pick up another one, vibrates, and go through your whole pile of receivers. They're all now set on the correct frequency. So that's what that is talked about here. We have a headphone output on the receiver as well. Normally, the output feeds into the camera, but you want to be able to listen to the actual receiver itself sometimes. Sometimes your camera doesn't even have a headphone jack, and now you can listen. We also have what's called monitor mode, where you can take a receiver and clip it to your belt pack, hook up your own pair of personal headphones, and reach down, and the plus minus button becomes your volume control. So that's a nice thing. So these all transmitters certainly, and the receivers many times, run on batteries. And you've got to know how your battery life is. Well, you can see from the display here that there's a little battery icon, a 3-segment battery icon. But the point is, even if one segment is missing and you're going out to do a 2 or 3 hour job, are you going to take a risk? Probably not. So you're going to toss away batteries that have a lot of life left in them. So what we also offer is a battery count up timer in the menu. You go down to the running time menu and you reset the timer to 0 minutes, 0 hours, and you set that. And that is now a count up timer. So when you're getting ready to go out to do a shoot today, you can go to look at this menu, regardless of what the 3-segment graph says, and say, oh, well, I've only used the thing for 2 hours and 41 minutes last time on these batteries, and I'm going out for a 3 or 4 hour shoot, but I'm used to getting 8 hours out of battery life out of a pair of AA's, even more if you're using, kind of Panasonic Eneloops or things like that. But you can use nickel metal hydride batteries, alkaline batteries, all sorts of batteries. And having that accurate running time can save a lot of money in the course of the year because batteries are not inexpensive. So that's a good thing to know about. So moving on, the transmitter has something called auto gain mode. So depending on how talent is used to where they hold their microphone, the system will automatically do the proper gain. You can even do what's called 15 dB gain boost mode when people always hold it too far away. You can manually set it, of course. Here's an interesting one, and we're getting close to the end here, but these are some of the features. We have low-cut filter frequencies to get rid of factory noise, wind noise, things like that. Variable power output, 5 milliwatt or 30 milliwatt. The plug-on transmitter can even do 40 milliwatt. Different types of batteries have different kinds of graphs, so we can set that to read properly on that 3-segment thing. We can switch it to microline level on the transmitters. We have simple and advanced menus, so you don't always have to have the advanced menus open, because in fact, once your system is set, all you do is go out, scan for new frequencies the way I showed you, and get to work. But the one I want to make sure you understand is the top one, occupancy sensor filters. So the idea here is, many years ago, we realized that in green architecture buildings, a lot of times they have what are called occupancy sensors that turn off the lights when all the humans walk out of a room after a little bit of time. And those sensors can be one of 2 types. They can be infrared sensors, or they can be ultra-high frequency emitters, usually built into emitters on the ceiling. But that ultra-high frequency is either at 32 kilohertz, way up there, or even higher at 40 kilohertz, way outside of the human hearing range. But that ultra-high frequencies can get into the microphone and cause that companding scheme that we talked about earlier to misbehave. So we have added in, since we have DSP, digital signal processing in here, we've taken a tiny little corner of that processing power and given you an ability to turn on a digital filter above either 15 kilohertz or above 20 kilohertz that will filter out that ultra high frequency noise. And so if you're doing an interview with somebody in their office and you are listening on headphones, which you should, and you start hearing some funny noise, ask the talent to go out into the hall for a second. If they sound clean, they got an occupancy sensor in their office. Turn on this filter and you're back in business. So that's the occupancy sensor. We have, for Sony cameras, something called an SMAD-P5. It is a hot shoe. It's an intelligent hot shoe that mounts on our cameras. It's got a boatload of little pins. It's not just a dumb cold shoe. You screw it on to the bottom of either our single or our dual channel receiver and tighten the little knob down so it's tight. And then you attach the receiver, you slide it into the shoe, and the audio will then go directly through the shoe, directly into the video file of the camera. And you don't even need to put batteries in the receiver now, because the camera's large battery will come up through the shoe and power the receiver. And in all of our latest generation of cameras, there's a little analog digital switch. Flip it over to the digital position, and it sends the signal digitally directly into the video file. Some of our much earlier cameras, we might want to flip that to the analog position. So moving on, we have, and we're just at the very end here, we've got a couple of very useful shotguns. This is an ECM VG1. You can see the price here. It's a nice little metal mono shotgun, and it can be used at the end of our plug-on transmitter for end of a boom pole or that kind of a thing. We also offer a little stereo shotgun, a little short stereo shotgun called an ECM MS2. This is a great little accessory, short little cable with XLRs to add to many of your camera sales in the small, kind of DI camera world. Z280s, 300s, FX6s, FX9s. And since these are many times 4-channel cameras, you can add the stereo or the 2-channel receiver, have that go to channel 1 and 2, and you can have the little stereo shotgun feed channels 3 and 4. And for the viewer watching back a program that was recorded this way, they are potentially brought into the stereo space of the place where the camera is. Whether it's hearing cars go back and forth or just hearing the sound of a stadium at a sporting event, whatever it turns out to be, or the sound in a wedding chapel where you hear the organ reverberating through that giant space. So capturing in stereo, if you can, is a nice thing. Finally, we have wireless training videos on our YouTube channel. This is Sony Professional US and Canada, and we have a playlist that is all about wireless microphones, episode 13 all the way up through episode 17 in this case. And 13 through 16 is all about every menu and button and feature of the units itself. But episode 17 is an important one to watch as well, because it talks specifically about spectrum and the frequencies that these things use. When you understand all of this, wireless microphone will no longer be able to bite you in the butt. You will become its master and you will understand it all. And that is really, I think, the end of it. End of the presentation. Andy, thanks for hanging in there.
Andy, thank you so much for the presentation.
Of course.
The YouTube channel is an extremely valuable resource. We'll include a link to the playlist with the webinar today for all of our dealers to check out and to bookmark and use that as a reference with all of your customers. The Sony UWP-D wireless mic system really comes down to configuring the best system for all of your customers and their projects. You start by choosing from the single channel or dual channel wireless receiver. You have the options of the body pat transmitter and a few different lapel mic options there. You have the handheld mic with the built-in transmitter, and you have the XLR barrel plug transmitter to use with other microphones that are especially being used already. A lot of times we'll get calls for that in the house of worship marketplace where your talent just falls in love with the mic that they're using, but they want to be able to take advantage of all of these great wireless features that Sony offers through their systems. Andy, that was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much for sharing it. I look forward to seeing you at NAB, I hope, and doing some more of these in the future as well.
Got it. Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us here on Broadfield Live. Tune in every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next week, cheers.
Broadfield Distributing is a value-added distributor of live production, streaming, video editing, and storage products. We only sell to resellers. We are always looking for new dealers, so call us at 1-800-634-5178 or email sales@broadfield.com. You'll like doing business with Broadfield because we make it easy to do business.